Today's episode of Lone Star Lawyers on the Varsity Podcast Network is brought to you by Varsity Search. Varsity Search specializes in helping small law firms in Texas hire lawyers and build great teams. So if you are thinking of making a move or your law firm is looking to hire, please go to varsitysearch.com and book a time to visit right into my calendar. Varsity Search, building great teams. Hey everyone, Daniel Hare back with you on Lone Star Lawyers. Thanks for being with us. Before we get into this episode, I want to let you know that right now, Varsity Search has been retained by a construction law boutique in Dallas to help them grow their team. This is a tremendous opportunity for either an 8 to 12 year partner level attorney, as well as a 3 to 6 year associate attorney. These are well compensated positions which provide a lot of client interaction and responsibility. So if you or someone you know might be interested, please email me, daniel@varsitysearch.com, or you can message me on LinkedIn. Also, a heads up that this Thursday we will be dropping yet another of our movie verdicts episodes. So far, we've done My Cousin Vinny, The Lincoln Lawyer, and A Few Good Men. And now Robert Callahan and I do a deep dive into Witness for the Prosecution. So if you haven't seen or perhaps heard of this 1950s classic, check it out soon so you can be ready when we drop the episode on Thursday. Okay, today is another Monday Mentors episode, and we are privileged to be joined by Cody Stafford of Dobrowski Larkin Stafford in Houston, a 2019-20 Texas super lawyer rising star. Cody is a civil litigator focusing on complex commercial disputes, and his firm is one of the leading boutique litigation firms in the state of Texas and across the country. We talk about the booming Houston legal market, how to ask your supervising attorney for feedback, and the importance of writing and how to improve it. All right, with that, let's jump into our conversation with Cody right now on today's Monday Mentors episode of Lone Star Lawyers. Cody Stafford joins us now. Cody, thanks so much for being with us today.
Appreciate it, Daniel. No problem.
Well, let's start off by, I did a little introduction to you before, but I want to hit this again because it is Dobrowski Larkin and Stafford. And
It is. It is.
So congratulations.
Thank you.
I know it's not a new thing, but a relatively new thing. So congratulations on that. Tell us about your firm. You've been there now quite a while. Tell us what's going on and what you do there.
Sure. Yeah. No, I've been here ever since getting out of Baylor. It's going on 10 years now, and we are a boutique, complex commercial litigation firm in Houston. We don't have a specialty. We kind of do everything across the board: breach of contract, breach of fiduciary duty, trade secrets, trademark infringement, federal court, state court, Texas, across the country. So it's a little bit of everything. Every day is a new day. And I tell you right now, we have more work than we can possibly handle. So it's good in Houston right now.
Yeah, well, and we've had these conversations before about just the incredible growth in Houston from not just business, population, but also the legal practice and law firms and everything else. And it's interesting that, even with all of the large firms putting their stake in the ground in Houston over the last few years, national, international firms, that firms like yours that are doing that high-level boutique work are having a lot of success. And what are you hearing from your clients about that? Why are they choosing to go with kind of that specialized boutique approach? Because I think that seems to be working really well for you all, for sure.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think there's a couple of things there. One of them is we charge less, typically speaking, than any big firm.
Right.
And just by definition, we have to staff cases leaner, so you get not only you get the same quality of legal service with a cheaper bill, and you also get a more responsive, at least from my perspective, a more responsive system from your attorneys, because you don't have to go through 4 associates to get to a junior partner to get to a senior partner. It's, the client calls you up directly and you know them and they expect attention right then. And so that's part of it. And I think part of it too is we have the opportunity to get cases that big firms typically would get because we can go toe to toe with them. Yep. But at the same time, you have kind of these either mid-level clients or big clients that have mid-level cases that it doesn't make sense to send to a big firm, and you get the case, and then, it can be millions of dollars, but you can't really justify big firm fees. So it's really a really positive place in the market, I think, to get some really great cases.
Well, that's awesome, and I'm happy for you and happy for your firm, and excited for the next phase for you all. That's great. I know you said you do a lot of different things within that high-level commercial litigation basket. Are there things going on in either just the litigation practice or maybe within the industries of which some of your clients come from that are noticeable right now for you or impacting your practice? Any changes or things that are going on of late that you're paying attention to?
I mean, I think there are 2 things there. One is, of course, being in Houston, we do have a decent amount of energy clients. So, oil and gas always plays some role. The good thing about litigation, it seems to me, is that typically, even when the oil market is down, people are still fighting over stuff. So you can look at that as a plus. Right. So we don't seem to have a lot of up and down in that market, but that can impact what we do. I think the bigger trend that impacts me on a daily basis more and impacts clients more, both from a cost perspective and just from a moving the case forward perspective, is e-discovery. And as federal and state courts continue to grapple with how to handle document production, just in the 10 years that I've been practicing, it has changed dramatically. And, trying to deal with metadata, trying to deal with your document review platforms, and just there are a lot of opportunities for the other side to come along and gripe about document productions, or where's the metadata for this document, or they're just and then just trying to get a complete document production from your client it's very difficult, and I think it's perplexing sometimes to clients, and it's and courts courts have a hard time, I think.
I'm sure the judges aren't super excited about any of that.
And so you kind of go back to what we were talking about of being, taking on mid-sized cases. So I still get cases where the other side, sends me documents in PDF, and you have a very manageable 2 bankers boxes of documents that are really relevant to the case. And you can really see how different those cases are, just preparing for depositions, preparing for trial, moving the case forward, totally different. I think that is one thing that obviously will continue to be a problem because the courts simply have not caught up with the reality of e-discovery.
Yeah. That's interesting. Well, and good for our the lawyers listening to this to really know about that. That's something that they are going to be dealing with, if they're not already. They're going to be dealing with every day, and the changes that happen on that front for sure. Well, it hasn't been that long ago that you graduated law school. I know you said 10 years, but what's maybe something that you learned in those first couple of years of practice that has really stuck with you and helped you become the lawyer you are today over these last few years?
I think there's a couple of things that, if I could go back and talk to myself in 2010, one would be spend some time learning to write. That is something I think law school, maybe it's hard to teach writing until you actually get out and realize what you're writing for, but learning to write and really putting in the time, it just takes a long time to write something. It goes back to the old Thomas Jefferson story, probably apocryphal, but where he said, "I'm sorry, this letter's too long. I didn't have time to write a shorter one." Right. It is, I thought when I started that I was just going to put something down on paper, go down to the courthouse and wow them with my oral advocacy. And then you realize, no, when you get down there, they've read what you wrote, and it may be over before it begins. So that would be the first one. And I think the other one would just be to understand how long anything takes and how hard it is to practice law.
Yeah.
That, at the time I thought things should be, okay, I found the answer, I put it down, I go, when in fact almost everything, even the things you think are easy and straightforward and you know the answer, sometimes when you look at it, you realize what I thought was the answer or what should be the answer is not the answer. Yeah. And that is something that just takes some, getting it wrong a few times to realize you got to double check everything.
Absolutely. And always a good reminder about just the importance of writing. And I know that it's something that I hear probably probably the most that I hear from lawyers about what they're looking for in associates or what associates are lacking or just kind of anything like that. You ask that question, and the writing skills are probably at the top of that list. And so I think it's great advice for just lawyers right now listening to this, thinking, if I really want to step up and step ahead of where I'm at right now, just really getting that writing piece down would really help to do that, right?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, because the reality is one of the first things that any partner is going to see in the work that you do is writing. It's unlikely that they will see you in court the first time,
right,
with some magical oral argument.
Right.
And frankly, it's, I see a lot of writing, both from the other side and from our side, and someone that has clearly thought about it and simplified stuff and has the ability to take something complex and make it relatively simple. You don't see that very often. And when you do see it, it jumps out. Yeah.
Was there anything specific that you did to get better at it other than just kind of do it over and over again? Is there anything that you could impart upon folks listening of trick to the trade of how to, like you said, it's hard to teach in some ways. So how did you find yourself getting better at it?
I realized a few years in that I had always been told I was a good writer. And then it dawned on me that, when somebody tells you that in middle school, maybe it doesn't still count later.
You needed to go to the American Idol writing audition and have them have Simon tell you, nah.
So finally, we had a partner that kind of turned me on to Bryan Garner. There we go, Bryan Garner. Yeah. And I read some of his stuff and started incorporating that and trying to just simplify my writing. I think that was the main thing is, write in the active voice and just, give. And then also I think realizing that, in federal court, maybe you can write somewhat differently in theory because you have more people looking at the writing. They've got assistants. But if you're in a busy state court, you need something right up front that says, here's a paragraph of what I want and why I get it. And some of that just comes with understanding what the judges they're faced with. And so I started doing that and have had, some success with that. And I think it also helps, it took me a couple of years to probably realize I can call a motion whatever I want it. And so, and I think once you kind of start freeing yourself from the, this kind of strict idea of here's what the motion should look like and here are the certain words I need to use. And when, and I've learned to write more colloquially and just kind of be myself versus what I think quote unquote lawyers should be.
Right. The legalese and all of that.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it still pains me to see that, comes now, so-and-so, wherefore premises considered. And I just, but you still see it. I mean, even some very good attorneys you see that do that stuff. And to me, it's distracting. And it seems to me that it's also very distracting for judges. So,
yeah. No, that's good. Well, thinking about maybe as you were an associate and those that you worked with, and then now in these last few years, associates that you've supervised, managed, led, kind of all that. What are maybe one or two traits that you have found in common among those associates that have really had success, have done well? Maybe it's also representative of something that you did, but what stands out for you of something like that?
I think one thing is just perseverance. It's sometimes the answer is not easy. Oftentimes it's not easy. And having someone that will say, okay, I'm just going to sit here. I'm going to figure this out because I'm not satisfied until I have the answer. I'm not satisfied until I have gone down all the rabbit trails you have to go down sometimes to get to what the answer is. And, and part of that, is something that I had to learn the hard way. Was early on in my practice, I had a tendency at times when the project was really difficult, I would say, well, if I do this, I'll do a decent enough draft, or I'll do this far enough, and then I'll hand it off to someone else, and surely they'll have the answer. They'll inspire me, or they'll figure this out. And that doesn't work very often, because sometimes even the 30-year lawyer looks at you and goes, I don't know. You just got to figure it out. And it also doesn't endear you to anybody when you come to them with, kind of, oh, I tried, kind of,
Right.
So I think it's the ability to just sit down and really work through problems. And the other thing is, I think people that do well are those that really don't view their job as just doing one discrete part of this. They go, I want to win. I want to go win this thing. How can I make that happen? I realize I'm doing a memo, but can I think outside the box? Just because I've been given this question to answer, if that raises 6 more questions, then go answer them. You come up with ideas. And people that take the initiative, I think, are the ones that, they may not be the best writers all the time. They may be super nervous in court. Those things you can work on. But I think the desire to represent the client, to win, that's something that's hard to teach. And that's something to really, I think, you got to have that fire. Right.
Yeah. No, that's really good. Kind of along the same lines. How would you advise a young lawyer to go about asking for feedback, whether it's senior associate or partner, whoever's supervising them?
I think the big thing that, if someone comes to me and they have a question about their performance or their work product, if you can tell that they have really tried, like you've really worked on this and you have a serious question, then to me, I've never seen anyone say, I don't care about that, or, dismiss them if you have put in the work. If it's I'll just go ask this question because I want someone to give me the answer, I think that's different. But absent that, it's, figure out what it is, think about the question, think through it. And then when you get to a point where you honestly need help, go ask somebody and have a defined, what are you asking? Have a defined question, defined goal in this, and then, seriously ask for advice. And I think if people can tell, at least in our firm and for me, if I can tell, look, they've thought about this, they have worked through it, they honestly have hit this wall, and we've all been there, and I still get there plenty. Then I think that inspires people to want to help you more than just superficially. When they can, when people can tell you're trying to improve yourself, and that they can give you honest, critical feedback, and you're not going to be upset by it, I think people, certainly in my experience, are willing to do that. If you're trying to develop and grow.
Yeah. And I think that's the key, right? That's that piece that you just mentioned really is, because, and I think the people, if they're listening to this, they're in that camp generally of wanting to grow, wanting to get better. But that doing the front end work part before you ask for that feedback does seem like a key component to that, because otherwise that's not going to go very well.
Yeah, no, I mean, no one wants to think that you're just, you don't have the initiative to do it. You're trying to look for an easy answer. But, if you've put in the legwork beforehand and you go like, look, I've hit a wall. I mean,
Right.
that's the great part of this job to me, is that I can sit there and think about something and go, oh, this is a great idea, or this is a terrible idea, or I've run out of ideas, and I can walk down the hall and say, hey, what do you think about this? And I do that with, more senior partners. I do that with associates, just to say, does this make sense to you? That is, and everyone is willing to do that unless they think you're kind of wasting time, that you're just looking for an easy out. But absent that, I think, it's just doing the work.
Anything different or unique if they're not maybe asking a specific question on a specific assignment or a specific, project, but just in general, just overall kind of my performance, we're in between stuff here, or what, and I'm not asking you specifically about a project, but I'm coming to you and asking, basically kind of how am I doing, generally speaking. Any advice there?
I mean, to me, I think in those cases, it's probably a good idea. Just find someone that you think can help you with whatever, whether it's general performance or whatever it is, and say, hey, can I take you to lunch one day? Try to, set aside some time,
right,
and try to do something to, get them interested, because it can be hard, certainly for when you're in the thick of things and you're billing a lot every month, and you've to just say, let's sit down for 15 minutes in the office versus hey, can I take you to lunch today? Can we just talk about some things I have questions about, how I'm doing, things I can improve on, and maybe have, ideas of your own about, hey, here are the things I think I'm a little weak on. Can you help me? I think, if you don't think your writing is very good, find someone you think is a good writer and say, hey, can I take you to lunch and pick your brain about writing? I see that you're really good. I saw this one particular brief you did, or motion, or what have you. Can you tell me what are some of your keys? What's your writing process? And I think probably asking people, what's my performance like? That's such a open-ended question. But if you can identify things that you think that you want to improve on, and then, find someone and say, hey, I know you're good at it. How do you do it? I think that is probably going to get you to better, more concrete results than just kind of well, how am I doing? Can you give me generic feedback? Because, people I think are often reluctant to call out, they're reluctant to call out everything they think is wrong with you. And you may not want to hear that anyway.
Some of us are, yeah.
So that's how I would go about it.
No, I'm glad you said that kind of the combo there of setting aside specific time and asking the person to do that as well, so that it's not just popping in their office and, hey, let's talk about this right now, where they haven't had any time to think about it, no prep, and then are probably going to be distracted by whatever it is they have in front of them that they're working on. That's great to kind of make it its own thing and separate that out. But then also doing that legwork up front to kind of hone in on what is it that you're asking. That's specific question, or specific questions about your performance rather than the generic kind of overall thing. Good stuff. Thanks for that. When you, as a young lawyer, start thinking about how to go about building your own client base, or your own book of business, your own kind of network of potential clients, when do you think young lawyers should start doing that? How do they go about that? What are some of your thoughts on that?
To me, that's something that took me a little bit of time, actually. I was so focused initially, and I think a lot of lawyers are, on just being a lawyer. How do I actually practice law? And then it takes a little time to get to the point where you also realize it's a business, and you've got to consider that aspect of it. I think the sooner the better. And frankly, I think you got to think of it right from the start, because everything that you do for a client, it can be business development. Every motion you write, every response, everything, every hearing you attend is a reflection on what your work is. And, even aside from that, just how you interact with the client from the get-go. Are you prepared for meetings? Are you responsive to them? I think clients will give you a lot of leeway. I mean, I've lost trials before, and the client still brings me business just because that one trial was not dispositive of our relationship. It was a lot deeper than that, and they knew that we had done good work on other cases, and we won a lot more than we lost. And so they were willing to, accept a loss or a setback every once in a while if they liked you, knew that you had worked hard, and just said, hey, sometimes things don't go your way. So I think it's important to kind of develop them holistically and understand that the sooner you can go out and meet with folks and just view every interaction as this is future business development. I think that is key. And your work product, if you're prepared and you're doing your job, the client will see that, and that's big.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's good. I think, it makes total sense. I think you're right. Young lawyers, and as they should, I mean, they're learning the practice. Years 1, 2, 3, 4, you're learning how to be a great lawyer. And in a lot of ways, that is the client development. It's you do good work for someone, they're going to, want to come back. But yeah, in the peripheral of that, you are having relationships, you are meeting people, and those people can become clients, even if it's 5 years from now. So kind of having that long-term view starting now with just having that mindset, I think is definitely helpful. Even if it's not maybe priority one when you're just learning how to practice, right?
Yeah. For sure. And the other thing is, I think it's important to remember every time you are out and you're meeting people, I mean, even if it's on a weekend, those are all potential clients.
Sure.
And so number one, you have to kind of be prepared to, have your card with you and be prepared to, talk to people at least in some way about, hey, here's what I do. If you need something, let me know. But it's also, in a slightly scarier sense, it's for people transitioning from what I think college, law school, being kind of still a kid. When you're transitioning from being a kid to adulthood, is also realizing, hey, if I'm out anywhere in town, I'm kind of on. You have to be, because you could run into a client anywhere, and how they see you there is going to impact. Hey, there's just it becomes it's more complicated, I guess, but it keeps you on your best behavior, at least in theory.
That's right. I like that disclaimer in theory. Well, so when you are hiring an associate, so what, lateral associate, 2, 3, 4 years out, maybe, what are some of the key things that you're on the lookout for? Certainly, I mean, I do want to hear credentials and kind of the things on the resume, but more specifically, what are things that throughout, the interview process, or things that, trying to figure out whether they're going to be a good fit with your firm, kind of, what are some of those things that you're looking at?
I mean, I think personality is obviously one, and that's a little unfair because not everyone can, to some degree, your personality is what it is. But, when you go in and you are engaging with people and you have done some research, you've shown some interest in the firm and the people there, I think that's big versus just I'm coming in and I'm going to sit down and answer your questions. Being a little more proactive, I think, is very good. And we've interviewed some people that were, they would ask a question about some obscure fact, on my background, that I'm thinking you had to do some real legwork to figure this question out. So that's always impressive. You can at least do some research. But, I kind of go back to where we started, which is the writing sample, I think, is huge. Your resume, not necessarily content. I think there's probably a lot of things people put in a resume that I don't know that is that interesting to me. Maybe it is to others, like your hobbies. I don't know that I generally care, but, but it's more, to me, a resume is more interesting in how you've formatted it. Do you have typos? Have you shown some thought in how you've prepared the document and presented it? Because that's something that you're going to be asked to do for a court. Have you given some thought to your font choice and, et cetera? That's, it's a small thing, but details matter. And,
yeah, absolutely.
And then I think you move on to, at least in my sense, you move on to academics. But, I don't put as much stock per se in that because, we've had attorneys here that were at the top of the class, and we've had attorneys that were in the middle of the class, and they've both been stellar. So to me, it's more about, have you shown that you have an eye for detail? Because so much of what we do, at least, is very, very detail oriented, and you have to get in the weeds. So it's just those little small things that I think can make a big difference.
What you mentioned, someone coming in and having kind of dug up a small detail. Is there a line there that is kind of, you cross it and now it's kind of creepy, stalkerish, versus like you've done a good job of researching and finding out interesting things about us to ask us about? I get that question from people sometimes. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
I mean, I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. I think in my case, it was something to do with, my educational background. So it was kind of fair game, something you could get from the website.
Yeah. You would have had on the website and that. Yeah.
I don't know that I would want someone to go to Facebook and start trying to look through my pictures and, that might be different.
Right. Yeah. I looked at your house on Google Images and
right. I don't.
That's a nice fence you got out there.
That would probably border on the creepy.
Okay. We'll draw the line to somewhere before that.
Right. Yeah. Just look at the stuff on the State Bar website, maybe, or our website.
Right.
Beyond that, I don't know.
Right. Well, we're almost out of time, but before we go, and I've got some just quick hitters to ask you as we wrap up, but is there anything that I haven't asked you about that you feel like as a younger lawyer you'd want to share that would be helpful for them to know?
I think as a young lawyer, one thing that I would have wanted to know is, I think there's a tendency to want to win everything, and you should, that you should want to win, but litigation is really more war. You're not going to win every battle, and you just have to keep your eye on the prize, stay focused on what your case is, stay focused on what you have to do for your case, for your client. And don't get so wrapped up in every bit of minutia that you cost your client a bunch of money, or that you lose focus of the good stuff for you and winning the overall case. So, I think that is a little bit, and not only that, I mean, if you worry about every time you lose a hearing and a judge doesn't go your way on every bit of the motion, you're not going to sleep much.
Right. Because that's just going to happen.
It just happened. Yeah. It's just part of it.
Yeah, sure. Well, Cody, thank you again so much for being here and for sharing with us. We got some few last minute here rapid fire questions for you. If you are ready, we'll hit these here.
Sure.
Name one trait or characteristic that you want to see in an associate.
Dedication.
What habit has been key to your success?
Questioning everything.
Good. Favorite app or productivity tool?
I have an iPad I take to court. I have Westlaw on it, but frankly, there's a great app that you can download all of the federal rules, all of the Texas, civil rules. That's great to have. That way you don't have to lug books to the courthouse every single time. Awesome. And of course, the last one, your favorite legal movie. I mean, I think the clear winner has to be My Cousin Vinny. But I would also go out on a limb, and I don't know if this is really a legal movie, but I think Liar Liar may also qualify technically. Oh, it qualifies? Yeah. Technically. That was also a solid one, if you're into late 90s movies. Absolutely. It's on the list for us to do on the show. And and there's really, as we were going through it, actually, there's not a ton of comedies that are good and all that. And so I'm glad you mentioned it. It is on the list. So nothing to be ashamed of with Liar Liar. I think any legal movie has to be non-serious, because it's like, once you've practiced law, you watch it. If they're trying to be serious, like, that's not how it works. That's not really how it works. At least My Cousin Vinny, it's supposed to be not how it works. That's what makes it work.
Right. Awesome. Cody, thanks again, man. This has been great. Enjoyed it. And hopefully we'll talk to you soon and you'll come back one time.
Absolutely. My pleasure, Daniel. Appreciate it.
All right. My thanks again to Cody Stafford for joining us on today's show. If you enjoyed this episode, would you consider doing two things for me? Would you subscribe in your podcast app or player so you don't miss an episode? And then could you also let your friends and colleagues in the Texas legal community know about the show so we can serve as many of you as possible? If you have suggestions or thoughts about the show, or if I could help you in any way, please email me directly, daniel@varsitysearch.com. Also, a reminder that right now I am doing a search for a construction law boutique in Dallas. And if you have recommendations or if you might be interested in pursuing that opportunity, please, again, email me, daniel@varsitysearch.com. Doing that search right now. Lastly, as a reminder, don't forget Movie Verdicts coming up again this Thursday, where Robert Callahan and I will break down Witness for the Prosecution. So be sure to come back for that one on Thursday. All right. Well, I want to say thank you to all of you for listening to today's episode of Lone Star Lawyers. I'm Daniel Hare with Varsity Search, and we'll talk to you next time.